If you're a photographer, the new Lightroom HDR update is their best update ever. In this video, I'm gonna be showing you why that is, exactly how to use it, and how to improve your photos with it coming up. So here's a standard photo that we have here. Now, in the past, we've had our histogram and we've had auto features and black and white features. Now you see a new feature here called HDR. What does this do exactly, and how does it affect your photo, and why is it so good? I'll be showing you all that right now. So if I just increase my exposure on this, you can see that it can increasingly look more and more fake, overblown, and overexposed. Now this is a pretty dark photo. However, if I go back to my standard exposure where this was shot and then select HDR, something incredible happens. If I hit HDR, we get a completely new histogram over here. So over here you have your standard dynamic range on the left. Now on the right you have a high dynamic range area. You'll see this is divided into 4 sections. You can change this to be 4 sections, 3 sections, 2 sections if you come down here to the HDR limit. So you can do 3 stops, you can do 2 stops, you can do 4 stops, and you'll see as you increase up, it makes new windows available on this HDR histogram. So what does this do? If I scroll up, what this does is where this would be overexposed in my previous photos, now it's encroaching over here onto the HDR side. So it's no longer overexposed, but now it's just bringing in other sections of high dynamic range areas of your light. This is a big, big deal because previously you would have overexposed photos and limitations in Lightroom. Now you're able to achieve high dynamic range types of edits without having to shoot bracketed photos or anything like that in the field. Now this has become easier and you get new updates with it. So you have an increased exposure, it's encroaching into the dynamic range. I can increase my contrast here. I can increase my highlights, and if you see, where are these areas of HDR coming in? So if I scroll up here to a lot of this moss coming in, now if you'll see when I hover over this, these areas that are now turning red or orange in the histogram section as I scroll around with this little window here, those are the areas that are getting into the HDR section. So I want to be cautious not to bring them in too much, but they are going to be there some. And how this is good is it makes those areas glow. I truly believe this is going to take the place of Photoshop as Photoshop luminosity and luminosity masking and all these expert kinds of editing become obsolete because of tools like this. Now, this isn't taking the place of it yet, but just think about where this feature can go in the future as we continue to explore it and learn more about it and newer updates come out for it. But if I go to the before and after, you can see how this has affected the photo so much better. If I go before and after here, you can see the dark photo that's not HDR on the left and the brighter photo on the right. Now, photos like this can be very subtle. You can really expand the range of this with something like wildlife photography in the middle of the day. Looking at this photo here, just in standard dynamic range, I have a good histogram. It's very well balanced. If I increase the exposure though, that's being way overblown and overexposed. However, if I bring in HDR, you can see how that changes. The clouds light up, it's much more expanded in the range that you're able to photograph and get in the editing process. The birds are brighter and they're not overexposed, and the sky looks better. You can also click where that HDR is coming in so you can visualize this and see where it is in your actual photo. So I'm gonna deselect that right now. Now, sometimes when you're using this, the sky can look a little bit fake when you do this, but as I scroll down, and like I showed you with the color dropper and the color mixer, and if you don't know how to use the color mixer, you can click or tap this video showing up on your screen right now. I can just select this area of my color mixer and of my photo and just bring down the saturation on that and bring it back down to a realistic look. I can even adjust the hue and the luminance of that as well to make it more realistic too. So where we had a kind of drab photo, now we have a brighter, more dynamic range looking photo on the right. This is probably the biggest update to Lightroom that we've had in a long time because of the ability to stretch out dynamic range outside of the camera in a realistic way in post-processing where you're not having to do tons of work in Photoshop. If you want more Lightroom tutorials, here's a playlist that's gonna show you exactly how to use this software best.